In this video, I am going to show you how to make a roll-up holder that just rolls like this and holds with an elastic strap for a pack of 8 jumbo crayons. Each crayon has its own little pocket, and it is the perfect holder for home, for storage, for the car, for travel, wherever your little one wants to take these big crayons and get creative. I'm also going to show you how to do it with directional fabric. We all know that toddlers in particular often really love things that have those characters on them. Now, it's much easier, I will say, to do a roll-up with non-directional fabric. This is made out of one piece of fabric. It is folded, sewn together, rolled up, because nothing matters as far as the direction goes. Now, with directional fabric, that becomes a problem. I made this one like it was non-directional fabric. So I cut one piece of fabric, I folded this up, and I made the pockets, and look what happened. The designs on the pocket are upside down. Total bummer. Right side up here, right side up above the crayons, but the pockets upside down. That doesn't thrill me. So today I'm going to show you, instead of using one piece of fabric, you're going to use 3 pieces of fabric, but then everything is right side up. And then I chose to use just an accent fabric because I ran out of this. I just hit my scrap bin and found something that is absolutely perfect to coordinate with this fabric. Before we get started, I'm going to share something important with you. What is really, really important for you to know and understand is this. Let's look at the legal warning here. And this may be an unpopular opinion among many people because I definitely see this heatedly debated on social media, but here's the legality of it. And I'm not a lawyer, but I have licensed my art for over 21 years, so I do understand copyrights and how this works. Always defer to the selvage. Don't believe what a girl on Facebook tells you and says, no, it's fine if you're selling less than 50 or however many, you can totally sell it. No, you cannot. This says, sold for non-commercial, home use only. That means if I make these, I cannot sell them. No money can be exchanged. I can show you how to make them. I can give this to my nephew, my great nephew, as a gift, but I cannot make these, sell these on Etsy, sell these at craft fairs, etc., etc. Now, does that mean people don't do it? Does that mean a lot of them don't get caught? But if they get caught, I can guarantee you that Paw Patrol Company has a lot more money for lawyers than you do. So it's bad karma, and it is just too much of a risk, in my opinion, to take. Now, with that caveat out of the way, let's take a look at the supplies that we need. In addition to the fabric, this is what I'm going to be using today. We obviously need the crayons. You're going to need some way to mark those intervals that you will be stitching to make the pockets. You can use a heat erasable pen or pencil and a ruler. You can use painter's tape, or I am going to be using my sewing machine's seam guide, and I will show you how that works. This is especially helpful if you're going to be making a bunch of them because you just put it in your sewing machine, set it up, and it is good to go for as many intervals as you want. Some clips, quilter's clapper, rotary cutter, and I'm also going to be using a hot ruler. This and this, totally optional, but I love them both, and I think they make things go faster and smoother. A hot ruler, it's like this flexible, kind of fuzzy feeling ruler. You can iron right on it. Now, let's get to the fabric. So just to review, if this was non-directional, or I didn't care if half of it was upside down on the pocket, I would just use 2 pieces of fabric cut to the same size. But because I want everything right side up, we're going to be using 3 pieces of fabric. This is going to be the inside. This fabric is going to be where this green is. So it's on the inside of the pocket. I'm going to sew these 2 fabrics together so that they're the same size as this one, but so that when we fold it up, the pocket fabric will be right side up like it is on this roll up, instead of upside down like it is on this one. I had a decision to make. I could have used this for the inside and these 2 for the outside, so it would have been more similar to this, but I know this kid loves Paw Patrol and he would rather see as many Paw Patrol characters than green, so we're gonna go with all 3 pieces like this. So our inside fabric is cut to 11 inches by 10 inches high. The outside fabric is cut to 11 inches by 6.5 inches, and this is our pocket fabric, And this one is cut to 11 inches by 4.5 inches. The first thing we need to do is we need to put these two together and sew them together. Here's the key to getting everything right side up. These need to be reverse. So this is right side up, this is upside down. Put them together, add some clips, and sew along here with a 1/4 inch seam. I grabbed a piece of scrap fabric that I'm going to be using a lot for this project, and it is called a leader fabric because it leads your sewing. What you do is you put it on top of your feed dogs and you start sewing on this scrap fabric. Leave a little bit of space before you go on to your project and then sew to your project. That way, if there's any bird's nests or anything, they're going to be back on this leader fabric, and you don't have to take the time to pull up your bobbin thread. The main thing to remember is that when you get to your project, just go a few stitches, then go backwards and forwards to lock the stitches on your project. Now that we have sewn these two pieces together, I'm going to set my seam. This is something very commonly done in quilting, and what it means is you just iron over your stitch line before you fold anything back. And then I come back and I press with my clapper. If you're not familiar with this, it's a piece of unfinished wood. It absorbs the heat and it helps to press any air or wiggle in the fabric so this is nice and flat. Taking the seconds to do that whenever you are sewing makes your end result just that much more professional. Now I'm just going to push this forward and we are going to iron that down and press that again, gets the heat out and really sets that press. The next step is to put these together, right sides together, and sew. But you'll notice the one where we put two pieces together is a little bit longer, and that's actually on purpose. I didn't want it to be short if somehow your seam was a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. So I added this little step where you're just going to line this up, lining it up with the bottom 4.5 inch section, and then just turn it and trim that edge to match. It's basically a 1/2 inch if your seams are perfect, but cutting that off and having it correct is better than having it too short. If you have lefties, like my dad in your family, and you want to be able to say, and I made it for you because you're left-handed, here's what you're going to do. You're going to put these together. If you want it to be left-handed, leave the left side open, sew these 3 sides. If you want it to be right-handed, you're going to leave the right side open, sew these 3 sides. We're going to make it right-handed because pretty sure I'm just going to put a few clips to keep this lined up and also remind me which of the 3 sides I'm going to be sewing. Then we're going to go and sew these with a 1/4 inch seam. Our next step is to clip these corners without clipping the stitching. And I like to do it in 2 steps, cutting at a deeper angle than you would get if you just cut straight across. That will have less fabric that needs to get folded in there and give you a better corner when you turn it right side out. The next step, you have a decision to make, and I'm going to show you my current favorite way. When we turn this right side out and to make our holder, we're going to have to turn this raw edge in, so it'll go inside when it's right side out, a 1/4 inch, which most people turn it right side out and then fold that in and press. I currently like to press before turning it right side out because I can see that I'm doing it straight. You can just eyeball it like that, or you can use your hot ruler, put it there, and then make sure that that edge is folded over right to that first line, which is a 1/4 inch. And press. Don't go all the way to the end because that's folded. So I usually go about 1 inch from the end, get that pressed, then I turn it over and I do the same thing on this side. Keep the other side folded under as you're doing this. Where on the second side, you can just eyeball it and make it line up with the first side. But now you have these 2 ends to deal with. So what I do is I just open it up a little bit. And then I just fold that down so that it is even with the 2 sides where it was already pressed. Let me know in the comments if you've tried this, if you're going to try it, if you just prefer the other way, or if you have other little tricks. This part's just always a teeny bit of work no matter how you do it. Okay, so we have that done. Now we're going to turn it right side out, getting those corners pushed out. And if they're not pushing out well enough with your fingers, grab a turning tool or even a chopstick. And you just, whatever you use, you want to push very gently and just push that out as well as you can. And then we just need to get this pressed nice and flat with these seams out. You don't want it tucked in like that and folded at all. So just take a minute. I usually just kind of roll my fingers to make sure that's out, and I do one side at a time. Make sure this stays folded under as you are pressing this. You can use your clapper if you want to. You don't have to. So I got that one side done. This is the folded side. This is the tucked under side. So I'm going to do the other sewn side. And then I'm going to just push out to flatten that fold so everything is nice and flat. So this is the inside. This is the outside with the two pieces. This one, the top's here. This one, the top's here. So now comes the magic. What you're going to do is you're going to make sure this stays tucked in. And then you're going to fold this up at that seam line, which is basically folding it up 4 inches. Now, if you want to use the hot ruler just to make sure you get it turned nice and straight, this is more important, honestly, when you're doing non-directional fabric, but I sometimes use it with the directional as well. I make sure this is lined up on the edge. And I just kind of move it and make sure that seam line is right on the edge of my ruler. Everything's lining up. And then you can just press right over that ruler. Then because there's a slight thickness to that, I usually take it off, press it one last quick time, and then hit it with the clapper. We have the left side open. This is the folded side, and this is folded up. Now what we need to do is we need to make our pockets for our crayons and add our elastic loop. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to sew about 1/8 of an inch, slightly less than 1/4 inch on the folded side. And I like to go all the way from the bottom to the top, just so it's going to be even and kind of hold this top part together when we get here. So let's head back to the sewing machine. When I can, I just pull the threads out of the leader fabric so they don't get in my way. Now I'm going to be sewing down this side. And this is basically the first stitch to hold this pocket together and establish the first seam of which we're going to measure all of the pocket stitching off of. Now you need to decide how you want to draw your lines or add your guidelines for sewing each of the pockets for the crayons. This is 1-inch painter's tape, which is perfect for regular size crayons. But jumbo crayons, we need 1 1/4 inches in between the stitch line. So what you can do if you want to use the painter's tape is pull a piece off, put it right on that stitch line. You want to make sure it doesn't go off of your fabric like that, because then it will stick to your sewing machine and things won't move smoothly. So make sure painter's tape is always on your fabric if you use it. And now we are just going to sew 1/4 inch beyond that tape. I'm going to be pulling up my bobbin thread so that I can start on this side. So put my foot down, put my needle down, holding my thread, pick it up, give it a little tug, grab the bobbin thread, put them both under the needle, go forward a few stitches, still holding these threads, backwards a few stitches, and then keep going. So now with the 1-inch tape and the 1/4 inch beyond it, we have the perfect distance for the jumbo crayons. So we can just lift this painter's tape, put it down on this stitch line, and do the same thing. That's one way to go. And honestly, that works pretty easily. We're used to sewing 1/4 inch from edges, so why not sew 1/4 inch from tape? You're going to be able to use that for at least one crayon roll up. If you're doing multiple, it might start to lose its stick, but let me know in the comments if you try it for multiple and how many times you can move this and get it to stay in place. The next way would be to take a ruler and use a pencil or a heat erasable pen, put the 1 1/4 line right on that stitch line, draw the line, and just sew on the drawn lines. The third way is to use the seam guide. Most sewing machines, if not all, come with a seam guide. Mine is metal, sometimes they are plastic, but it's basically this piece that's bent at a 90-degree angle, and you can put it into your foot And you can use this as a guide, similar to using the numbers on your needle plate, but this will work as you move across fabric. I use it a lot for straight line machine quilting and also for projects like this. So I'm putting it into a walking foot. This is a Janome sewing machine. Look at if you have one of these and want to use it, look at your manual. It'll tell you how to do it on your machine, but this is the basics. So you put it in and you just push it through. It's coming out over here. You just can't see that. And then you're going to line it up for the increment that you need, which is 1 1/4. Now, when this seam guide runs along a stitch line, I know that I will be sewing 1 1/4 inches away on this side. So this is my favorite way of doing it, especially if I'm making a lot. I just set this once and I just keep using it. There's no tape to move. I don't have to draw lines all the time. I just keep rocking and rolling. So if I wanted to start off the end of the fold, I just flipped this to the other side and put it in. So it's basically upside down because this is designed for right-handed sewing, but I can have it so that it is on the left-hand side. It goes on the stitch line, and then I could use the leader fabric. Now, when you get to this last one, depending on how well you press this under and did your seams, I always do a quick size check before doing the second to the last line. Do I actually have 1 1/4 inch if I sew here and then a little bit more than 1 1/4 inch? And I do. So 1 1/4 inch here and a little bit more over here, so that's going to be perfect. You just want to make sure your last spot doesn't get a little bit too small for your jumbo crayon or whatever you're making a roll up for. And if it does, you just scooch that over maybe a teeny bit and it'll be a little bit snugger, but we do not have that problem. So now we have sewn the pockets all the way from this first end to here, and we're not sewing this yet until we put that elastic in. Now for the elastic, for an 8 jumbo crayon roll, you need a 7-inch piece of elastic. You're just going to fold that in half, matching those raw edges. We're going to want to put it in halfway between the bottom and the top of the roll. So I just fold it in half just to get an idea of where that halfway mark is. Right there. So basically at the top of that bone. Now, here's an important part. You don't want to put it in between the 2 layers of the pocket. You want to put it in between the 2 layers of the backing. So the longer fold, not the shorter fold. So I'm just going to lift that up, put that in right at that bone. If it's not quite even, it's totally fine. And I'm putting that in about a little over 1/4 inch. And then I'm just going to clip that in place. Now, because this is pretty thick, because we have all the folded in part, I highly recommend pulling your bobbin thread up. And then I'm going to use this. It's another kind of leader fabric. It's basically a spacer. It's a piece of fabric I've folded and I just use over and over again to kind of get the fabric even. What this does is it helps your machine and your foot and your feed dogs move things when you're starting on the very edge of something rather thick. You basically want to use something that is going to be about the same height as the project you're working on, so your foot stays nice and straight. So I'm putting that back there. We're not going to stitch in that at all, unlike this one. Pull that bobbin thread up. These 2 pieces just push off the back, and we're going to sew about 1/8 of an inch from the edge just to make sure that we catch and close all of that part that we folded under. And then I use my scissors to hold it in place, keeping my fingers well away from that needle. Now to make sure that that stays nice and secure, we're going to back stitch over the elastic and also over the edge of the pocket. Now it is ready to clip all the threads and add the crayons. Now it is all done. Everything is right side up. Oh my gosh, my great nephew is going to love this. So now you're just going to put all the crayons in there. He's probably going to need help getting these crayons back in here, but it is a great way to carry crayons on the go. Slip it in your purse really easily. It doesn't take up a lot of room. You just roll it up like that. Take the elastic, and there you go. So if you don't want your kid to have screen time, just bring some paper, crayons, or a coloring book, and you are ready to go. This is the Jumbo Crayons. Let me just show you one other thing. And that is jumbo markers. Jumbo markers, or the washable markers, just broad tip markers. The washable ones, just these fatties, right? They are basically the same width as the crayons. So you're going to be sewing 1.25 inches across for each one, but they're a little bit taller. So the main difference between this and this is the markers come with 10 in a box. So you're going to need your fabric to be a little bit wider, and they're slightly taller than the crayon. So you're going to need your fabric to be slightly taller. So for a non-directional holder like this one, for the broad line, aka fat markers, you're going to need your fabric to be 26 inches wide by 7.5 inches high. Fold it up 4 inches just like we did with this, and sew at 1.5 inch increments. So there you have it. That is how you would do a Jumbo Crayon 8 set with directional fabric so that everything is in the right direction and not upside down like it is on this one. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, share on social media, and if you make any of these and share them, be sure to tag me so I can see what fabric combo you decided to make. Happy sewing!